Legal cases, legal issues, legal matters. You're watching WFTV's Law Talk with anchor Christopher Heath and expert legal analyst, attorney Mark NeJame.
All right, let's talk about some of the current cases, issues, and legal matters that our viewers are talking about. Joining me today is legal analyst Mark NeJame of the NeJame Law Firm, and Trey Flynn, who is in the criminal defense division. He's a partner there at the NeJame Law Firm. Right. We're talking about DUI today, and of course, you know, many people used to hear it as DWI. It's DUI, driving under the influence. Right. And we think about it as mainly being drinking and driving, but influence can be pretty much anything. Influence that you've taken into your body that's causing you to drive poorly.
If you've ingested something and it causes your normal faculties to be impaired, you are subject to being driving under the influence. It used to be known as DWI. People heard that a lot, driving while intoxicated, but now it's a broader term. And this is kind of an every person's crime. That many people who never envision themselves, they maintain that they're good law-abiding citizens and all, and they typically are, can find themselves in this situation. As you talked about, you can be out with your significant other and share a bottle of wine over dinner, and that might take you over the legal limit of 0.08. And that seems to be, that is a threshold, but you can still be arrested. And so the fact is that this is something that everybody needs to be cautious of. And I think over the last decade plus, with Mothers Against Drunk Drivers and matters such as that, and we realize that this is something that is often preventable, particularly in this day and age with Uber and Lyft and the ability to get somebody to drive you if you happen to be alone or if everybody in your party is drinking. This is really something that can be avoided and should be avoided, because not only do you endanger yourself, but you endanger innocent people in the public. But these cases are very complex, believe it or not, because of breathalyzers and because of the blood that might be taken from one when they've been involved in a DUI. So the fact is that they can be very defensible, but the penalties are significant and they are costly no matter what happens by the time you deal with your insurance, your lawyer, and everything else. So best thing to do is don't drink and drive. But if you do, get counsel and understand what your rights are.
And Trey, what should people know if they are pulled over? Let's say, to go with the, what Mark set up with, you're out with your significant other, you have a bottle of wine over dinner, you're driving home, you get pulled over, the officer says, I smell alcohol on you. What should people know from that point on?
Well, there's a couple of ways that they look for signs of impairment. First things they do is check your eyes, check the smell of your breath, see if there's the smell of alcohol on it. Just because somebody's eyes are red, bloodshot, watery, or they might smell like alcohol doesn't mean somebody's under the influence. Now, and I think that's important to know, because under the influence is a different standard than having consumed alcohol. I can go to a place and have a drink and smell like alcohol and not be under the influence. So law enforcement has developed what we call field sobriety exercises that they might request a driver of a vehicle to participate in once they're pulled over. Understand you're under no obligation to participate in these field sobriety exercises, but they are a series of exercises that test somebody's ability to walk a straight line, somebody's ability to stand on one leg, somebody's ability to recite the alphabet backwards. Simply put, these tests are designed to fail, in my opinion. They're not tests that a regular person could do when they're sober. Realistically, you don't typically walk front, forward, foot to foot, 9 steps forward, 9 steps back on a regular basis. You don't stand on one leg on a regular basis. So know that you don't have to participate in those field sobriety exercises to help them make their determination. Realistically, you're giving them evidence potentially of signs of impairment.
And then that gets into like the question of a breathalyzer and whether or not you decide to participate in that. Now, they can still go forward with getting a court order for a blood draw, correct? But the question becomes of evidence that they're going to try to collect to determine whether or not you've been drinking and driving.
Sure, and there's a tremendous number of defenses to that, and that sometimes people are simply not drunk. They're not, you can have alcohol spill on you. You can smell like alcohol, but you can have 10 drinks and have 1 drink, and the smell is going to be the same. The fact is that you could not be able, as Trey was bringing out, you may not be able to hop on one foot or be able to walk backwards or to, those are normal things. I haven't had a drink in decades. I don't drink. But the fact is that I work very late, so I might have bloodshot eyes. If I'm driving and I'm on my phone, and I shouldn't be on my phone, I realize that. But if I make a swerve and the fact is somebody sees me with red eyes, it has nothing to do with alcohol or drugs or anything like that. I just might be tired, as many people are. So there are, and also the breathalyzer is subject to a lot of technical attacks. They are not also necessarily and often not reliable. So sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. That's why you need a skilled lawyer. As the prosecution has skilled lawyers to understand whether the breathalyzer is appropriately working and whether it's meeting all the requirements legally to determine, because that machine is going to be a big part of your prosecution. And if it's faulty, then that's not necessarily a valid arrest and a valid case. Those are things that have to be gotten into.
And really, Trey, the other question, I think, and this is something you brought up earlier, obviously we all want to say don't get behind the wheel if you've had anything to drink. But even if you're under that threshold of 0.08, but you've got a couple drinks in you and you're under that threshold and you cause an accident or you're involved in an accident, there could be some issues there because they're going to come back and say, well, you do have some alcohol in your system, correct? Yeah,
it's not uncommon for them, if there's an accident, to suspect alcohol, especially late at night. I mean, it's a valid assumption in many circumstances. That said, again, you are subjected to those same sort of testing and potential breathalyzer that do come from that. You have a right to refuse those. Understand, if you refuse a breathalyzer at that point, you're giving up your license for a year. That's part of your agreement of having a valid driver's license in the state of Florida. But also understand it if you feel that, hey, you might be under the threshold because you've made the mistake of driving while probably having one too many drinks, that giving that breathalyzer number could still be used against you, even if it is a number that could be found unreliable down the line. So it's important to know your rights once you're stopped and what you're losing if you exercise those rights.
And Chris, you bring up a very, very good point. When we file lawsuits against people for negligence in our personal injury division, if there's alcohol, the penalty, I mean, the amount of damages you're looking at accelerate. They go up there because, you're drinking and driving and you've caused an accident which causes death or injury. So the liability to you is far greater if, in fact, you're drinking and driving and an accident is caused and you're at fault.
And we talk about all these things, and whether we're talking about giving evidence or, whether you cause an accident, it gets back to kind of the root cause. Don't drink and drive. There are so many ways to avoid even having to set foot into this area of the law.
Absolutely.
And people can do that. We know, unfortunately, people choose not to. Trey, thank you so much. Mark, thank you as always. If you'd like to view this Law Talk or any of our other Law Talks, visit our website, WFTV.com/legal, or join us each week right here on Facebook. I'm Christopher Heath, and thanks for watching.
WFTV's Law Talk was brought courtesy of the Personal Injury and Accident Division of NeJame Law.